Welcome. I'm Julie Bacon, and you're listening to the Mindset Coaching for Handlers podcast, a podcast for dog handlers who are on a mission to achieve big goals. Here I share lessons, insights, personal stories, and tools you can apply during your next show, trial, or test to help you strengthen your mental game and hopefully cue more consistently. Be sure to check out the show notes where you'll find details about the episodes, plus important links, including the link to the Dogged Planner and Workbook created just for handlers on a mission. So if you're ready to improve your competitive mindset, get out of your own way, and connect with your dog like never before, then it's time to get comfy, bring an open mind, and work your mindset. Hey there, welcome back. All right, this week we are getting into a little preview of my upcoming course that I'm kind of super excited about. And it has to do with these concepts of mental toughness and grit. And this is a topic that has been on my mind for a while. I love the book Grit. It's a great book. It's also a great TED Talk. If you're don't have the mind space for the book, just listen to the TED Talk. Anyway, it is just a fascinating topic to me to figure out what is mental toughness, what is grit, when do we need them? Because on one hand, I'm not really a fan of thinking about our mindset work as being tough, right? I think there's some certain connotations to being tough that says that, oh, nothing gets through or nothing bothers me, or I'm just so tough that I can just power through or push through. And I think those are very dated concepts and often can skate over the real feelings underneath or makes us miss the curiosity or the learnings in the moment because we think that we have to be strong, be tough, and just power through it and not feel the feelings or somehow even go around it by being tough. And what I'm happy to report is that really isn't the definition of mental toughness. It might be what society has made us believe, but when we look at the research and we look at what has been studied about mental toughness and grit, there's actually a lot more to it. So that excites me also to be able to teach this in a new way. So pretty soon I'll have a new course out. It'll be available on my website. It'll be available on Clean Run. And of course, the members are getting a sneak peek in the month of June. So they're going to try out the course for everyone and let us know how it goes. But I thought I'd give everyone a preview and everyone just an overview of mental toughness and grit, why it's important, why we need it, what's the difference between the two terms, and how it's not just about being really hard and, just powering through. And it's not that old definition, or maybe that's just me that had that definition in my head, but it's not that. So here we go. So one of the first things I love about these concepts is it takes talent and it puts it sort of in the right kind of box, or right perspective, maybe is a better word. Because all the research shows that talent alone is not a predictor of how successful someone will be. All right. Now, it factors in, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but it's not like everything. And I think so often people will say in a very fixed mindset sort of way that oh, I'm not talented, or I wasn't born with that, or that doesn't come easily to me, or that's not natural to me. And we're enamored with this the glitz and glamour of natural talent, right? We can look at Olympians, right? We can look at Simone Biles and be like, oh my God, it's her natural talent. And yeah, she's naturally talented, but that girl works her behind off, right? Day in, day out, training for hours and hours a day, minding everything every piece of food she puts in her mouth, minding her schedule, her sleep schedule. I mean, there's so much work. And if Simone Biles had all of that talent, but none of the effort, she wouldn't have the results. And so what's really cool about the studies is it says talent isn't everything, and that effort really is the big multiplier here. So I think that is really good news for those of us who, maybe the sport that we're in doesn't come, quote, naturally to us, or maybe even our dogs don't seem to have natural talent. Maybe they have a great work ethic, or maybe they love to do the sports, but, maybe they're not as, quote, natural as some other dog. Okay. So this is a really interesting cornerstone of this whole concept, because what the researchers have really found out is that there are a couple key predictors of whether or not someone's going to be successful. The first is this grouping of factors that include resilience, hard work, determination, persistence, perseverance, those kinds of things, which we're going to break down more. And the second part is they have a clearly defined direction. So let's take that clearly defined direction just for a moment and just to kind of talk about it and be done with it for a second. A clearly defined direction are the goals we set out for ourselves. Maybe some of us even have a vision or a philosophy or a bigger why statement, right? Why we do dog sports to begin with, why we love to put ourselves in these positions, why we are implying ourselves and putting this effort forth. And the people that are successful over a long term know where they're going, and they are able to stick with it. And that's where the perseverance and the persistence comes into play, is they have a direction that they are steering toward, and it may be a distant point on the horizon, but they are committed to it. And they're committed to steering toward that point on the horizon, even if, their journey is a little wonky, right? A little east, a little west, a little north, a little south, but they, in the end of the day, they know where they're headed. And that is a really important distinction in what people find in terms of success. And so that I love my goals. And so to be able to sit down with our goals on a regular basis and make sure that we know where we're heading is really important, not just for our day-to-day, but it really does direct sort of some overarching points of success for us. So that is really clear in the research. All right. So the other thing that comes out is having a talent for something is very different than excelling in it. Sort of like the Simone Biles example, right? You could have all that talent and not excel in it if she didn't put in the work. And so for those of us who have to work hard at becoming good handlers, that's good news, right? Because a growth mindset says that what we put effort toward can improve, and we believe that. And so we are willing to put that effort in to see the changes, right? To see the things change in our lives and to see progress and improvement over time. So having natural talent, great if you do, that doesn't let us off the hook, right? Simone Biles is not off the hook for having natural talent. You still have to do the work. And it turns out that work, those efforts, are even more than our natural gifts, matter in our long-term success. Okay. So the other thing that all of this shows up is that super achievement, or being really successful, or being an elite handler, or, being on the world team, or going to the, obedience finals or the invitational, or whatever are your goals. It really is the sum of the mundane. Okay. And what I mean by that is, when you have this big goal and you achieve these big goals, if you look back on it, it really was a bunch of little things. It was a bunch of times or a bunch of days or a bunch of classes, trial classes, where you stuck to your rituals, for instance, or you made sure that you went to the trial every day, every weekend with, all of the right food prep for yourself, or you did your visualizations beforehand, or you stuck to your rituals, you stuck to your training plans throughout the week. And individually, those aren't maybe glamorous, or maybe even that interesting to someone else. Maybe you're rehabbing from your own injury and you've just been really committed to foam rolling every day and being really good about that. No one is going to be probably, unfortunately, no one's going to be cheering you on for foam rolling, but those little mundane things add up, because that foam rolling makes sure that you are, getting better, or it's big part of your rehab, and you're staying flexible, and you're keeping that fascia broken up, and you're doing all the things, right? And so realizing and remembering that super achievement is the sum of sometimes very mundane, non-glamorous, sometimes boring things is also really important to know here. Because what's going to happen is when we step into, what toughness and grit is, there's this element of that we have to stick with our goals over time. And sticking with our goals sometimes means sticking with the boring stuff, sticking with the getting up in the morning at the right hours and going to bed at a decent time, and and persistence and perseverance when things are hard, when things are easy, when things are boring. And so I call a lot of that invisible work, right? Because foam rolling or my working out every day or doing those things is like no one's seeing. Like I'm not I'm not posting about it. I'm not making sure that that's visible, but it is really important. And it is that sort of invisible work that adds up. So in a way, there's hundreds of those little actions that when we take them in the direction, because we have that stated direction, when we take those little actions in the direction of our goals, that is a big part of what adds up to our success. All right. So when we talk about then what is mental toughness and grit and why they matter, there's a difference between those two phrases. Well, the phrase mental toughness and the word grit. And let's take mental toughness first. Mental toughness, think of it as resilience, adaptability, and being able to come back from something, being able to be flexible, being able to recover, right? To work through something. It doesn't mean ignoring it. It doesn't mean glossing over it. It just means that idea of fall down 7 times, get back up 8, right? It's that ability to recover and reset and recommit to our goals, okay? And adapt to the changes because, as long as some of these journeys are for us, people who are going after mocks or rocks or arches or, big championship goals, which might take 20 Qs or more, you do need to adapt along the way, right? Stuff happens. It's not just this lovely straight line of entering 20 trials and being done. Grit, on the other hand, is sustained passion and perseverance. It needs stamina. And one of the words that came out is loyalty. And I love that concept. You have to have loyalty to your goal. And if you are loyal to your big goal, then you are more likely to persevere. You are more likely to get up early, go to bed on time, make sure that you're eating correctly, those kinds of things that are in service to your goal. So what people have shown is that we need both sides. We need to be mentally tough so that we are resilient and adaptable and can recover. But we also need grit because that's what sustains us. That's what keeps us going in some of these marathon goals. And the concept of having stamina to go after a goal or having loyalty toward that goal, I think you can really see that emulated in Olympic athletes, right? I mean, their whole lives are about this one thing, either getting to the Olympics or winning gold or winning the next competition. They are loyal and have persevere toward that goal while also being resilient and adaptable. So that's the difference sort of in the research between mental toughness and grit and why we need both. And of course, for us, like I said, most of what we are doing is a marathon. We want to keep getting better. We want to keep leveling up. We want to keep pushing ourselves in new ways. And in order to do that, we need stamina. We need to be able to persevere. We need to, basically not quit when things get hard or not quit at the first sign of trouble or an injury either to ourselves or our dogs. It's that ability to stick with something over time that really is the differentiator for us and is the difference between people who are, successful and the people who maybe are having to start over again and again, or that maybe the people who give up or shrink their goals because they don't feel like they have what it takes to keep going. So I think that's really interesting, and I think it's really helpful to understand. I know it was helpful for me to reframe what toughness is and what it isn't. And so I think that that's kind of why I was so interested in revisiting this topic and creating a course for it, and so on and so forth. So in a minute, we're going to go a little deeper, and I'm also going to give you a little homework. Quick question. Do you ever wish you had more mindset help? Well, the Q membership was created just for that reason. Every month we pick a topic, and then we have 4 lessons, which are kind of like these podcasts, that we dive deeper into. And so if you are ready for more, you're ready for more mindset work, think about joining the Q membership. Annual members get a free coaching session, but you can also choose the monthly option as well. Go to theqcoach.com to learn more. Let's get back to the episode. So in terms of developing mental toughness and grit, there definitely are some underlying skills, or supporting skills, I should say, to do this. The first of which is a growth mindset, developing a growth mindset. We've talked about this as a kind of a consistent theme on this podcast, right? A growth mindset says that, with effort, you can improve. It's just a core belief of that. Fixed mindset would say, like, no matter what I do, I'm never going to get better, or it's always going to be the same. And I think really when we're talking about mental toughness and grit, you have to have that belief that your effort is going to pay off, right? So that with effort, I'm going to move closer to my goals. And so having that growth mindset and believing that improvement is possible, maybe you believe that you can take your novice A dog to the world team, or maybe you have a different goal of this is my first milestone step of very many more to come, and eventually I will have the dog that will take me there, for instance, right? But it's perspective of how we see ourselves and what we believe to be true. And to me, having a growth mindset is crucial. And I think all of you probably have it. And you have it because you're listening to this podcast and you want to get better, and your mindset is important to you, and you know that with these additional lessons and building these skills, it can get better. But at the same time, I want you to know that it's okay if you have a fixed mindset about some things and a growth mindset about others, or if you sort of vacillate, from time to time. Sometimes you go to a seminar, and the seminar instructor is like, okay, class, I want you to try it this way. And the first thing in your head is, oh my God, I can't do that. Oh my God, I've tried that before. It never works, or I can't do a blind cross. My dog ends up, walking on my back, kind of a thing. Or, I've tried that method of a figure 8 and it just never works for me. Those are fixed thoughts popping into your head. What turns them into growth is you sort of leaning in and saying, like, okay, maybe this hasn't worked for me in the past, but I'm going to try it in this way, and I'm going to lean in with curiosity and openness and see how it goes. All right. So we're all over the map when it comes to fixed versus growth. But the idea is we want to lean toward growth more often than not. Right. Another competency that we need to build as part of our mental toughness and grit journey is building emotional resilience. And for me, resilience is so important that I already do have a class on this that is available, because, this is not a straight line. This game that we're in is not a straight line. We don't just practice, trial, cue, right? It is bumpy. It is ups and downs and 2 steps back and 1 step forward, and, all kinds of things happen. And, sport is wild, and sport with a dog is more wild. And it just is a lot going on. So we have to make sure that we are developing our emotional resilience and able to maintain it within a competition environment, and what that means. Next is being able to set and achieve those long-term goals. And we're going to get into this a little more with our homework, but we have to make this, a habit. Goal setting isn't just a thing that we do at the end of the December or beginning of January. It's lovely to be able to write those down and have that clarity, but we have to keep going back to them and making sure that we're on track and that our actions that we take today, in June, are still supporting what we said was important. And that goes to that grit, that stick-to-itiveness, that having the stamina and the loyalty to our bigger goals to make sure that we are still on track for them, right? And then, of course, there's focus, concentration, visualization, being able to mentally develop the stamina to hold on to these goals and to be able to almost hold it together, and also to understand how to get into flow and just kind of those basics of competition that we all crave so much. And then finally, there's perseverance and sustained effort. Like, what does that look like to really persevere? What does stamina toward a goal look like? What does loyalty toward a goal look like? And in the context of mental toughness and grit, how do we make sure that we keep going even when, things get hard or things get uncomfortable or things go completely sideways and we have to come up with an entirely new plan? Right? There can be some heartbreaking moments in all of sport and especially in dogs. And we have to be able to understand how to frame those moments so that they don't tear us down forever, right? That we can get back up and form a new plan and come back to what we love. Okay. So now comes the homework. I mentioned in the beginning that one of two what did I call them? I don't even remember what word, but my two things that really are paramount for people to have in order to get to those sustained goals and have that toughness and grit and be successful is to have a direction. So your homework is to make sure that you have that direction in place. Do you understand where you're headed? Do you understand what you are trying to accomplish? Do you even, if you're driving to a trial right now for the weekend, do you even understand what success looks like for this weekend? How are you defining success? How are you measuring progress? What is your plan? And I think so often we give over our plans for training, for instance, to our instructors for a group class, right? So we show up at group class and we're like, oh, I'm going to do whatever the instructor tells me, instead of really being able to say oh, I'm actually going to my open obedience class on Thursday and here are the things I'm working on. Or I showed up to scent work this week it was a brand new session. And I was like, here are 2 things I want to accomplish this session with my dog, right? So when we participate a little more fully, we're doing that from a position of understanding the alignment between our practice on any given Tuesday and how that supports the goals or the direction that we have set for ourselves for that year, or maybe even for a lifetime or for several years. Maybe we have a goal that's going to take several years to attain. What is your alignment to your actions this week? So I think that I will leave you with that, right? And of course, if you follow any of my goal setting stuff, you'll know that, I have a little bit more to it, and a whole planner that supports it, and a workbook if you don't want the calendar. Anyway, I digress. But I think it is really important to always be able to come back to our why and our decisions and our big goals for the year and let those things pull us forward, right? Let us want them so badly that we are willing to do all the work, that we are willing to get up early or, go to bed on time or get our butts off the couch to do 5 minutes of cheese stick training or whatever it takes, because those goals are so important that they pull us forward. And we've talked how motivation comes and goes, right? Because motivation is emotional. And this, I think, having toughness and grit says, even if I'm not feeling it, today, right? Even if I'm not feeling motivated today or any given day, I know that these things are so important that I am loyal to my goals. I will persevere, and I will do this with resilience and adaptability and determination and all of those things. So that's kind of your primer with your homework on like toughness and grit in my upcoming course, which will be available. I'll tell you about it. I don't need to tell you. And, but obviously if you want to join the membership, you get a preview at it. And regardless, I just think this is a really great reminder for all of us of what it means to be mentally tough and have a little grit that allows us to really push through. And the other kind of homework I would give you is to think about times where you really went after something and you persevered. Like it took you years to get, and you didn't give up. And you have that experience to pull on for even times now where you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do it. You can look back at that time and be like, you know what? I've done it before. I've done hard things before. I can do it again. So mental toughness and grit, we want it. And I hope you get it and I hope you have it. And I will leave you with that for this week. All right. Whatever you're up to this week, I hope you're having a great time with your dogs. Thanks so much for listening to the Mindset Coaching for Handlers podcast with me, Julie Bacon. I am so grateful for your precious time. Check out my Dogged Planner workbook and journal available on Amazon. Just search for Dogged Planner. I also offer monthly membership that's perfect for ongoing support of your awesome goals. Check out theqcoach.com for details or just stop by and check out all the ways you can work on your mindset. And be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at theqcoach and let me know how it's going. Finally, please share, subscribe, and leave a review. This helps us podcasters tremendously. Plus, I know I get my best podcast recommendations from friends. Thanks and have a great week with your dogs.